We are back here at the 2023 DC Auto Show. There's a lot to the show this year, so let's go ahead and dive into it. But just a quick note, this show is a little smaller than last year. To begin with, though, we did start with a bang. This is the Ioniq 6. It is not released yet. It kind of looks like a Porsche 911 and a bug had a baby and made it electric, and you get this. There's a lot of screen, there's a lot of buttons, which is nice because a lot of electric cars just don't have that. There's also a lot of space for a car that kind of feels a little bit small. Getting out and taking a look around, you can see what I mean by that 911 kind of bug baby look. It's not a bad looking car, it's not for me, but I really like some of the cues they took with the LED lights, kind of how they're boxy. It looks nice compared to a lot of other cars out there, and you can see there's a lot of sensors and other things. I also really thank Hyundai for allowing us to get up close to a lot of cars. You'll see later there's some car manufacturers that don't let you get around and touch any pre-production cars or do anything. I really like they can do this, and the back end of this thing looks killer. I really like it, even if it's a little round, a little kind of large in the rear. But it's not that large. If we move around to the front, they have a hilariously small front, like what's even the point? And even when we go to the back, you'll see the opening for the back is pretty small as well. But let's go take a look and see what else they have to offer us. The Ioniq 5 was everywhere at the show. It's here on the floor, it's getting painted later on, you'll see it on the entrance and exit. It's still a nice looking car, and I love seeing these around driving. I'm seeing more and more pop up. They're pretty cool, and I still really like the styling and look of them overall. Next, we're going to jump over to Lexus, which actually has a full EV, which is wild. This thing has a big frontal grille, it's a big car. And looks really nice. It has very much the Lexus styling in play here. This is the Lexus RZ 450e. I don't know what the point of that name is, give it something better, but if we take a look here, it's a nice looking car. It looks like almost every other SUV out there. It's just all electric. But when we get to the interior, you'll see that driving wheel is different. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at it. Now this thing's shockingly comfortable to hold. There's a lot going on and not very much is powered on, so you can't really see what's going on. But it does have this nice glass top. It has a SUV luxury feel, which is what Lexus is going for here. The Polestar 1 was back again this year. 1000% sure this is the exact same car in the exact same spot as it was last year. It's beautiful looking. The matte kind of satin black finish is gorgeous. The look of the car is gorgeous, and this is one of 1,500 in the entire globe that has been produced. So pretty cool, and it's a hybrid, which is okay, but it's a cool looking car. There's not a whole lot else going on inside the Polestar area. This is the Polestar 2, and apparently they had a Polestar 3, but it was so uninteresting and out of the way that I didn't notice if it was actually there or not. This is the same car that they've been producing for the last couple of years here. After that, we have the EV Pavilion, which is basically electric bikes. Not something that I'm super into. I don't have a commute where this is useful, but it's nice to see so many options, and they're relatively affordable for what they can do and what they can save you. The all-electric battery-operated Metro bus was back again, along with a super old bus. I believe this is from the 50s, but going back to the battery one, you can see how it's kind of laid out, how they have the charging structure, how they do all of the work with it, and there's all the stats if you want to freeze it and see what's going on with it. But it looks like a regular bus, it just happens to be battery-powered. This is not a regular bus. This is a restored Metro bus. It was actually gifted over to Metro. It's super cool. Just super retro 50s styling. It's gorgeous. Everything about it is beautiful. Now let's jump out of the box a little bit. We have EV hovercraft. This thing can apparently go 50 miles an hour and up to an hour and a half is the battery length that it has. It's a one-seater with a couple bench rows in back. It's $1,000 down. They're going to be shipping only 35 of them this year. And then after that, they're going to produce them at $200,000 a pop and in whatever numbers. It's called a Von Minster Arosa EV hovercraft. There you go. And this thing's wild. I don't think it's particularly good looking. I think it's kind of awkward, but there's all the stuff with it. And you can see behind, you can test out the electric bikes there as well if you're interested. We then have a Slingshot and this other area of the company that makes these things. These are not super interesting to me. They look cool. They're ridiculously expensive, but they're fun to sit in and kind of just look at and pretend with. Then we'll go over to Volvo. This is the C40 Recharge. There's not really a whole lot of documentation in the show about this one. It has nice interior, all of that. And then there's another one I'll show you in a second. That's the Volvo XC40 Recharge. And basically the only thing I can tell with the two is that the XC has higher end specs as far as the trim and all of that. But Volvo and Polestar, as you can see, they are related companies because the styling is almost the dead similar between the two. Towards the front staircase that came down, you're able to take some Ioniq 5s out for a little test drive. You can hear the tires squealing here, but there's no engine noise. They can just whip around this track, and they look kind of cool doing so. And it's really squeaky because you're only hearing a tire squeal, no engine noise or anything like that. Speaking of Hyundai, they also had a couple other cars like the Kona. Not a super exciting electric car, but it's a nice looking regular car. If you didn't look at the front of this thing, you would not know it's all electric. But what was exciting was this thing. This is the Nexo. It's a hydrogen-based car, which is super cool. It's going to start around $67,000 or so, but the finishes feel very high-end on the inside. It looks really nice. They didn't really have the fuel cell port thing open so you can see that, but it gets about 250 miles per quote-unquote charge or for gas fill-up, and it's really cool looking. And the last little stop off before the supercars that you can kind of see starting behind there a little bit. They have 4 or 5 cars that you can go through and paint. And what was cool is the artists were actually there painting live. So we have a Camry there. I don't know what this Nissan one is. I think it's the yellow car from last year, but I don't know enough about Nissans to do that. But just a really cool looking car. And there's going to be a Ioniq 5 here, which clearly looks like an Ioniq 5. Lots of cool paint going on, and there's one other one that just looks great. Fits DC and just looks beautiful, and that's going to be a Kia EV6 here in just a moment. You can take a look at that. It's Capitol building, it has the mall, it has a lot of cool little things, and it's all electric with that big plug there. But you can see this is a cool looking one. I'm going to skip all the supercars and come back to them. I want to look at the EVs upstairs before we jump into the supercars. And here we have the new Prius. This is the Prius Prime, I believe, is the spec model of this. And it was up on the showcase spinning around. You couldn't get a good look inside of it. But just off to the left, you can barely see the front bumper of the gray one. You are actually able to go inside that. And by inside of it, I mean you can get up close to it. But it's all locked because it's quote-unquote a pre-production model. Toyota, unlike some other manufacturers here, does not allow you to get into pre-production model cars, but Chevy is also on there because we have some big Chevy EV stuff coming up, and we're not able to see inside those as well, or even get as close as we can to the Toyotas. So the Prius looks a lot nicer than what it used to. It's still a little funky, but I also drove a 2016 Leaf, so I'm okay with funky looking cars as long as they do what they're supposed to do. You can see the interior of this looks nice. It has multi-layer screens. It's a prototype block vehicle, but it does what it's supposed to do. It looks like a Prius, but modern. And this is the car that was up on the showcase last year. This is the Toyota BZ4X. Again, what is with these names? It's a nice looking car. It looks like an SUV. If you go into it, you'd see all the fun stuff. It has clear pass-through on the bottoms, so unlike a traditional car that might have a little raised up area, it's there. But it's pretty standard looking SUV flair. This one is Toyota brand, but it looks a lot similar to a lot of the other ones there. The infotainment center does look nice, and there are clicky buttons, and that's all well and good. Toyota also has this little area here of future cars and other things. There's not a lot to say here because it's just kind of quick eye candy. Let's move on. Before we get to the exciting Chevy stuff, let's take a look at the Bolt, which is the affordable EV option, but you can see lurking in the background there's some much more exciting things coming their way. But the Volt is just fine. There's no problems with the Volt other than the battery issues that they've had. But we have the Blazer here. This thing looks great. You can't get super close to it, but you can see the infotainment center is on. It looks very nice. I don't care for the two-tone top with the white rails over there. It's not my thing, but it's fine. And then you can see the Big Daddy over there behind it, which is the Chevy Silverado. Again, we couldn't get into it. You can't even really get a good look inside of it because it's just not there. But it's a really big truck. It looks nice. And we have another model of the Blazer sitting next to it here. Speaking of that Blazer, you can see where the charge port's at, which looks nice. We can get a little bit of the interior flare. The red doesn't do it for me, but whatever, you do you. What is cool though is you can walk around back here, and around the back you can see this gear tunnel pass-through thing. Charging on this is in the back, not the front like most electric trucks. But if you take a look and there's a step down, you can actually see right through that screen all the way up to the front of the truck. Pretty cool. Heading on over to Nissan, we have the Nissan Ariya, which has been pretty much unchanged since it came out. It's a really nice looking car, sort of. It still has the nerd factor that the Nissans have, but there's clear pass-throughs for everything, nothing big deal. We're going to flip over to the other side here in just a moment, and you're going to be able to see the Nissan Leaf. This has remained unchanged since they did the update in 2018, I believe, and it's a really functional, usable electric car. If they put active battery cooling and battery management on this thing would be absolutely killer. Heading back to the area for just a second, this one has a little bit different of a feature. If we open up and take a look down here at the driver's side, usually we have something to divide the floor between the driver and passenger. There's nothing there in the Aria, which I think is kind of neat. Ford didn't have a ton out. They didn't have an F-150 Lightning, but they did have their Mach-E, which I think is a really nice looking car. It looks sporty. It's not a Mustang, but whatever. It's a great looking car, and I heard people who drove it at the show really liked it, and the light up emblem is killer. One of the other things that Ford had was a Ford Transit van, but not just a normal transit van that's boring. This is an all-electric transit van, which is way more exciting. Just the idea that we can go and get some more transportation electrified is an exciting thing for me, clearly. Subaru had their Solterra out, and again, it looks like an electric SUV. For whatever reason, a lot of them are going with this two-tone area where the fenders are a dark color and then has a little air inlet, and then the body is another color. The floor again is flat throughout here. There's a lot of screens and buttons. It's pretty much unchanged from the model that we saw last year, but it looks pretty cool, and they have this rally car which looked extra cool. There's a lot of stuff on here that I don't understand, but I want to learn more because this thing looks super, super cool. And as always, they had an adoption event for dogs, so we took a quick break and hung out with some puppies. Jeep stepped up their game a little bit with the Grand Cherokee E, which gets about 25 miles all electric, and there is a plug-in part of this. It's a hybrid car, but there is dedicated battery power that you can charge independently of the gas system. It's a Cherokee, so if you need that space, if you need that ruggedness, quote unquote, you can get it with the Cherokee, but you can also get a little bit of mileage just all electric. They also had the Wrangler there, which is the 4xe. This one also roughly gets 25 miles electric, and then the rest of it is gas-based. This one's unchanged. I'm pretty sure this is the same model as there last year, but the little blue accents are always fun. Kia had the Eero EV Wave, which is an all-electric car. You can't really get super close to it, but it looks like a Kia SUV that would be all-electric. They also had the EV6 here. You can see opened up, the back door's down. There's a actual window on the roof that opens up and you can stand up and get out of, which is super cool. And if you're not old enough to drive, they even had a simulator there if you wanted to drive the EV6. You can do so virtually. And the last all-electric car here was a Fiat 500e. These are not currently sold in the United States. They're still waiting approval from my understanding. But this is an all-electric little car that can move around town without any real issues. Alright, we're going to get to the exotics here, but take a look at the gas mileage on this Hellcat wide body. 12 miles a gallon city, 15 overall. I'm going to be quiet here and let you enjoy the beauty that are these cars. And oh yeah, Toyota's coming back with the Crown that's apparently sold all over the world, but this is a prototype for some reason. But don't worry, it's a Hybrid Max.